Good morning. Who's on already? Harvey? Very good.
Moving there?
Not yet.
5 after
Good morning, Rabbi.
Well, I have 8:15.
16.
Oh, God bless the Targumon there.
Uh-huh.
Hmm.
Okay, we will go through our learning sponsors and then we will deal with today's daf. Okay. We're going to be starting a new parak. Just a reminder, if I remember correctly, this is the last parak in Moed Katan, right? It's a long parak, but it's just with a lot of Hilchos Avelis, right? Okay.
And I learned this with Ashraf Palestina Rebbe.
Yeah.
I learned that I wouldn't do this.
Really?
Because people, I mean, if you're doing daf, you do, but it's all about Avelis. And they considered it was, not mazel dik.
All the procedures come
Till
from
you
here.
need it.
You'll need it.
That's why nobody knows the proper Avelis, because
Yeah.
nobody likes to learn.
Okay, right. Okay. Okay, learning sponsors. Excuse me. Sue and Arnie Garlick and Mary Malka Pro Man and Philip Man and Yisrael David Ben Rav Tzvi Hirsch, Beryl Ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Yosef Meir Ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Henya Rivka Pro Raz Nabat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, in the memory of family murdered in the Holocaust. Harav Tzvi Hirsch Ben Shlomo Yaakov, Sarah Bat Ephraim, Yisrael David Ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Ephraim Ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Adia Bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Miriam Bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Pesel Bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shalom Ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shlomo Yaakov Ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shmuel Ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch. Sharon and Fred Liska, their family and many friends, in memory of her dear mom, Harriet Friedman, Edel Bat Yaakov, Leslie and Gail Kaplan, in memory of their parents, Harry and Marjorie Sedell, Irving and Pearl Kaplan. Friends of Avi Gidler, Avrameir Ben Shimon, and Martha Gidler, Charna Bat Yeshaya. Children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren of Toby Paris, Sarah Tova Bat Yisrael Dov in her memory. Friends of Joe Wolf, Yosef Ben Chaim, Charlie Gelfenstein and Sam Levine in memory of Ramona Levine, Rachel Mata Bat Asher. Friends of Nina Monester, Nechama Azna Bat Yitzchak Aharon. Many friends of Stephen Vigdor, Lezecha Nishmat Simcha Melech Ben Meir Leib Halevi. Friends of Marcy Kurtz in memory of her great niece, Leah Bracha. A month of learning by Haran and Mel Haller in memory of her mother, Malka Rachel Bas Yehuda Leib. B. Pizer in memory of her husband, Harav Yisrael Chaim Ben David. Tova and Leo Zimmer in memory of her mother, Henya Bat Rav Beryl, and her father, Aaron Ben Yosef Mordechai. Perry and Jill Meltzer in memory of his mother, Malka Bas Baruch, and his sister, Golda Leah Bas David Halevi. Stanley Presser in memory of his mother-in-law, Golda Bas Leber, his mother, Leah Bat Yehuda, his wife, Ruchel Mincha Bas Moshe. Carolyn Josh Sanborn in memory of her father, Yehoshua Shia Ben Moshe Yehuda HaKohen. David and Sharon Carpel in memory of his father, Zeb Moshe Ben Shlomo Yaakov. Have a week of learning by Sylvia Gutis in memory of her mother, Devorah Bas Ruven Chaim, by Sam Levine and Charlie Gelfenstein in memory of Sam's parents and Charlie's in-laws, Liv Shabbat Avram Shammai and Yechiel Michal Ben Arav Alexander Ziskin. We also today have a day of learning by David and Aviva Levine in memory of his mother, Devorah Malka Bat Yosef, and by Tamar and Milton Fishberger in memory of his mother, Sosha Bas Moshe Halevi. May Hashem is having Aliyah, Crank Rafia, Velti Yashir, Hashem Atzliah, and the Chol B'nai Israel, a good Kabban Shtia.
Amen.
Okay, just one other item that we will be finishing Moed Katan a week from, 2 weeks from tomorrow. Okay? What? So if those who may not have a Chagiga, that is the next Gemara that we will be looking at. So they should contact the powers that be. Okay?
Or Amazon.
That could be the powers that
Yeah,
be.
but if you do it with Amazon, it's here tomorrow.
It's quicker. Right. Okay, so we said we're starting a new parak. We're on Yud Gimel Amud Beis, about 3/4, 7/8, whatever you want to say, to the bottom of the Amud. It's the last four Amud, last 4 lines on the Gemara. Okay? As we go into this new parak, we're going to see not only a connection between clearly aspects of Chol HaMoed, but we get into a new topic, which is Avelis. Okay. Okay, maybe I have we'll see if I have a story or two to share on that topic. Okay. Some of them are
You, from your rabbinate days?
from my rabbinate days. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So the Mishnah starts off. Okay. Ve'elu megalchin b'moed. Okay. It's as if we've referred to this in brief. These are the individuals who are in a status that they may have the shave or haircut on Chol HaMoed. First, Habamba Midinas Hayam, the one who comes from a long sea journey. Second, Umibes Hashivya, one who has become released from a house of captivity. Okay. Third, Hayotsemi Beta Asurim, one who has been let out of jail. Okay. Now, for next, Haminudeh Shahitiru Lo Chachamim, one who has been in a status of Shamta or Nidui. Okay, those are minor, I don't want to say minor exactly, but those are lesser status excommunication, lesser levels of excommunication. And likewise, somebody who's been released from a vow, okay, and permitted. In other words, he took a vow not to shave his head, not to get a haircut, whatever, a beard, so on and so forth, and then has asked the shaila from a sage who has permitted him to cease the vow. Okay? Vahanazir, and a Nazarite. Vahamitzura, and one who is a mitzora. Okay, and in their situations, mitumato, the taharato, that he has to undergo a certain process of purification, of which part of that, remember, is shaving the hair off their bodies. Ve'elu mechabsin b'moed, this is the Mishnah. And these are the individuals who may wash their garments or have their garments washed for them on Chol HaMoed. Okay, what are they specifically? Again, some common and some are different. Habam Medina Sayam, one who comes again from a sea journey. Umi Beit Hashivya, one again who has been released from a house of captivity. Vahayotsemi Beit Asurim, one who has been released from a prison or jail. Uminuda, okay, again, Shehitiru Lo Chachamim, Yudalit Amud for today. Again, lower.
All about the people who only have one set of clothes.
Oh, no, we didn't get there yet. Okay. All right. Uminudeh, one who has been in that lower level of excommunication and now accepted back by the rabbis. And again, one who has taken a vow and it's been canceled. Mitpachot hayadayim, face cloths or hand cloths. Okay. Umitpachot hasaparim, the cloths used by barbers. Umitpachot hasfag, and I'm going to translate those as towels used for drying one's body, what we would call bath towels. Okay, hazavim. Okay, so this is both a zav or a zava. Vahazavot, a male, female zav. Vahanidot, right, and those women that are nida. Vahayoldot, and those women who've given birth. V'chol ha'olim mitum'ah letahara, and likewise others who have passed from one status to another, from tumah to tahara. Hare elu mutarin, these are permitted to either wash their garments or have their garments washed by the launderers. Usha'ar kol adam asurin, and other people are prohibited to wash their garments on Chol HaMoed. Okay, and so the Gemara picks up and raises the question. Usha'ar kol adam, mai tama asurin, and as far as other people, why are they prohibited? Keditnan, as taught elsewhere in a Mishnah, Anshe Mishmar va'anshe Ma'amad, those Kohanim who are part of the Mishmar, that particular group that are stationed, I was going to use that term for the moment, okay, in the base, for the base of Mikdash, va'anshe Ma'amad, and those non-Kohanim, okay, who accompany them from the local town to the base of Mikdash, okay, as well for that week's assignment, right? Asurin l'saper v'lechabes. They are prohibited, okay, during their week of tenure, okay, to get a haircut or to launder their garments. Ubechamishi mutarin mipnei kvod haShabbat. But on the fifth day of the week, on Thursdays, they are permitted to do so, l'chvod Shabbat, for the purpose of honoring Shabbos. Va'amar Rabba Bar Chana, he says as follows, Amar Rabbi Elazar, in the name of Rabbi Elazar, my Tama, what was the reasoning? Okay, that these groups were limited in what they could do. Kadei shelo yikansu lemishmartan keshehein menuvalin, so they will not enter their tenure, that week's time, untidy. That's one translation of menuvalin. Okay, in other words, the implication is they get their haircuts before they start their mishmar or their ma'amad, and in like manner, the implication is a person should get their haircut before the beginning of the entire holiday, okay, and not in the middle of the Chol HaMoed, not in the middle of the holiday. That's the parallel, okay? Hachanami kadei shelo yikansu laregel kishehein menuvalim. So likewise here too, they should not begin the holiday. And we're talking about, remember, holidays like Pesach and Sukkot, all right? That they should not enter those holidays looking untidy. Okay. Now, by Rabbi Zera. And so Rabbi Zera asks a question at this point. Avdalo Aveda Erev Haregel. What happens if someone lost an important item, an article, okay, on the eve of the holiday? Okay, they were planning to get a haircut.
He's on his way to the
Okay,
barber.
and he lost his keys, his wallet, his whatever. Okay, Kevan da'anis, since the person it's done accidentally, right? Mutar, maybe then we might say it's permitted for that person, since he didn't get his stuff taken care of Erev the Chag, that to have it done, excuse me, during Chol HaMoed. O Dilmar, perhaps, Kevan delo muchacha milta, or perhaps because there's no proof here, okay, that he was delayed in getting it, looking for his keys or his wallet or anything. What else?
It's not, when you get off the boat, everybody knows.
Well, we'll get to that.
That's what Luke Mills.
Yeah, there's no-
His keys, nobody else.
There's
knows.
no clear proof of
Well,
what
it's
the
not proof,
status
it's that
is.
There's no public knowledge.
Okay, lo, or perhaps not. Amar Abaye, says Abaye, Yomru kol hasrikin asurin. Okay, perhaps Abaye says people might say, in another example, that all of the srikin. Now, Art Scroll did not translate srikin, but it has a note, okay, about it. All right, that it defines it as matzahs in which various decorative figures are etched into it. That's how Art Scroll defined it. Koren defined it as Syrian cakes, decorated Syrian cakes. Okay.
With the Gemara in Sochem.
Okay, so what happens? People might say, normally these cakes are forbidden. Srike baitus mutarin. But are we going to say that the cakes of this particular individual baitus are permitted? Ulatamech, and according to your line of logic, Hada Amar Rabbi Asi, that which Rabbi Asi says, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Kol mi she'ein lo ela chiluk echad. And here, Steve, we get to that point. Okay, here, when we say that what happens about the poor guy who only owns one shirt, one inner shirt, okay? Tunic is what Art Scroll calls it. All right, what does he do? What proof? And if he has to wash it before Yom Tov, what proof or what example could he give that in that situation? Okay, mutar lechavso b'cholo shel moed, that it's permissible for him to wash it on the intermediate days. Hatam nami, there too. Yomru kol hasrikin asurin, srike baitus mutarin. The people might say all the cakes, whatever, decorated cakes, matzahs, okay, are forbidden, and this one is permitted. Namely, why make an exception in this kind of situation? What's so unique that we're willing to make an exception under these circumstances? Right? Sorry. Mutarin ha'itmar Allah, but on this, the following was said. Amar bar Rav Ashi, okay, he said, Izuro mochiach alav. The fact that he would wear his outer cloak, his cape or a cloak, and belt it, and have a belt around that, okay? And therefore he would need that, of course, for tznius, to cover up that he has no undershirt or tunic or whatever, okay? This would be enough to show people that his status had to be different, okay, in this situation. Rav Ashi Matne, and Rav Ashi teaches as follows in different manner, the same scenario. By Rabbi Zera asked, Uman she'avda lo aveda erev haregel. If it's an artisan, a craftsman that lost an important item on the eve of the holiday, mahu. Excuse me, what's his status? Kevan de umanhu muchacha milta, because he's a craftsman or an artisan. We say, therefore, there is valid proof or some sign, okay, of his situation, and therefore an exception could be made for him. O dilma kevan de lo muchacha milta kihanach lo, or because there is no clear clarifying situation, okay, that in this case we're going to say no, teku, we come to no clear decision. Okay. Now, what about traveling from overseas? Medina Sayam. Okay. What two reasons can the Gemara give us that a person might travel for overseas? That's what we're going to see in a moment. Matnitin de lo Rabbi Yehuda. Okay. Our Mishnah cannot be according to Rabbi Yehuda. The Tanya who taught in the Braita. Rabbi Yehuda Omer says, Haba mi Medina Sayam lo yigaleich mipnei sheyatsa shelo b'reshut. Rabbi Yehuda is saying that one who comes from a sea journey cannot shave or cut his hair. Why? Because he did not go on a I'm going to translate it this way for the moment, non-mitzvah or clear necessary reason.
Doubling maybe. He did not go on a mitzvah or for
Okay.
a valid rationale.
Okay. So what is the reason? Shalo bereshut. Okay, the Gemara says Amar Rabba Lashut. He went according to one translation to travel for pleasure or to roam for pleasure.
Went on vacation.
Okay, Divrei Hakol Asur, according to everyone that is prohibited. Lemizonot, if he traveled, however, for a clear necessity, in other words, to earn a living, okay, and to be able to buy necessary foodstuffs like we spoke about yesterday, right, Bob? Okay, that were necessary for the holiday. Divrei Hakol Mutar. Everyone agrees that that is permitted. Lo nechlaku ela laharvecha, and they didn't disagree except in issues of profit. Mar medame le kilashut. One master compared it to traveling for pleasure. Umar medame le kilamazonot, and one master compared it to traveling for necessity. Okay, for the required needs. Meitive. But we'll challenge this with the following bright. Amar Rabbi, says Rabbi, Nir'in divrei Rabbi Yehuda k'shiyatsa shalo b'reshut. The words of Rabbi Yehuda seem more appropriate when the person did not travel, okay, for valid reasons. V'divrei chachamim k'shiyatsa b'reshut. And the words of the sages, okay, when he traveled for valid reasons. Mai shelo b'reshut. What do we mean when we say he didn't travel for valid reasons? Ilema l'shut. If we say it's for travel for pleasure, let's say. V'ha'amarta divrei hakol asur. But you've said according to everyone it's prohibited. Ve'ela l'mezonot. And if it's for foodstuffs for valid reasons, v'amarta divrei hakol mutar. You said everyone agrees that it is permitted. Ela pshita, but rather it must be obvious, laharvecha, that there's an issue of profit here. Ema seifa, and therefore I would say what there is at the end of our statement. Nir'in divrei chachamim k'shiyatsa b'reshut mai b'reshut. Okay, but we've seen here that it says, according to the sages, that he travels with permission. What do we mean permission? If we say it's to acquire foodstuffs, in other words, to earn money to buy his necessities for the holiday, right? Ha'amar divrei hakol mutar. But didn't you say already that everybody agrees it's permitted? Rather, we're saying that here too, there's a possibility of a profit. But didn't you say that the words, the perspective of Rabbi Yehuda applies here? This is what it means to say. Nir'in divrei Rabbi Yehuda. The perspective of Rabbi Yehuda seems valid. L'Rabbanan, to the rabbis, k'sheyetze shelo b'reshut, when he goes without the proper reasoning, without the real necessity. Umay, what kind of an example is that? Nihu l'shut, when he goes for pleasure travel. She'afilu chachamim lo nichlaku alav ela laharvecha, that even the sages don't disagree with him on this, except in regards to the question of profit. Aval lashut, but in regards to clearly pleasure travel, module, they acknowledge his position, Rabbi Yehuda's position. V'nir'in divrei Rabbanan the Rabbi Yehuda, and the perspective of the rabbis, okay, is apparent, so to speak, to Rabbi Yehuda, when he goes out with a valid reasoning. Umaynihu, and what might that be? The mizonot, to acquire the necessary foodstuffs for the holiday for valid reasons. She'afilu Rabbi Yehuda lo nechalak alehem ela laharvecha. Because even Rabbi Yehuda doesn't disagree with the rabbis in this case, except in the issue of profit. Aval lemizonot, but to acquire valid foodstuffs, modu laho, he acknowledges their perspective. Now, Amar Shmuel. Okay, we're about 5-6 lines from the bottom. Yes.
Does anybody know why he told me what's happening? Like, anybody knows everybody's business?
Yeah,
Pretty well.
because I
Okay.
sent your billing.
I don't know if I would compare it exactly to that, but it may be, okay, it may be that, remember, your question is a good one, Avi, because before we saw there had to be some way that people would understand, that they would be aware of it. Michael wants to make a quick suggestion and then we'll go.
It's, if Yitzchak is going to Rome to teach in the yeshiva, everybody knows that. If Yaakov is importing dates from Tunisia, and every year he gets dates from Tunisia and he sells. This year, he decides if I go to Tunisia, I'll be able to cut a better deal or get more dates, and I'll make a bigger profit. So again, everybody knows that. Because how come you're taking off? It's the Purim. Where are you disappearing to? Well, I'm going to Tunisia. I can make a great deal. So that's harvacha. It's not that it's not like a person who needs to travel on business. It's a person who finds a mitzvah that if I go now, I'll make a bundle. That's what harvacha.
Okay, that's a one valid approach. Okay. Amar Shmuel, let's go on. Avi, does that, the implication?
We deal with a lot within, for example, Mars time. A lot of things are done, not done, because you're worried about
What people are gonna say.
what they're gonna say. Yeah, and especially in terms of some laws of Shabbos and stuff like that. It's like, you can't have a kabbalah written over here because people will see it and say, oh, this guy, he wasn't a kabbalah, he was a day worker, so therefore all this kind of stuff is what people are thinking.
Okay, all right, so it's the context of living in a community, okay, a closed community, a small community, where, as Michael was suggesting validly, people are generally aware of at least their business, okay, situations. And from that perspective, okay, there could be an awareness of, if if you always buy a certain product from me, okay, and you suddenly see that I'm leaving town, okay, 2 weeks before Pesach, okay, am I going to, I don't know, to spend Pesach at some hotel? Is that the reason? Okay, or am I going to spend Pesach with my kids in White Plains? All right, just so there's, right? Okay, let's go on. Amar Shmuel, so Shmuel, Katan hanolad b'moed. Okay, here we're going to get into a slightly new subject. All right, a minor, a child, an infant, born on Chol HaMoed, mutar legalech b'moed. It's permitted to cut the child's hair on Chol HaMoed. That's assuming that the child is born with a significant amount of hair. Okay, well, we'll see in just a moment. She'ein lecha beit ha'asurin gadol mizeh. Why? Because the implication here is that when you don't have a greater prison than that. In other words, what happens?
In the womb.
Okay, the child is in the womb. And if there's a problem for the child to exit the womb, and you have to do something to minimally cut the child's hair, but it may mean other situations, it's permitted to do so. That's the implication. Okay, b'moed en, me'ikara lo. On the Chol HaMoed, yes. Before the holiday, no.
If the kid's born born
born
earlier.
earlier. Meitiv Rabbi Pinchas, says Rabbi Pinchas, Kol elu she'amru mutar legalech b'moed, mutar legalech b'yomei evlo. Wherever they say it's permitted to cut one's hair on Chol HaMoed, we're saying that it's permitted to cut hair during a period of mourning. And this is going to now lead us into a lot of discussion on Avelus. Ha asur legalech b'moed, but it's prohibited to shave, to cut hair on Chol HaMoed. Asur legalech b'yomei evlo. It's forbidden to cut hair on days of mourning. As we go over to the next Amud, V'i amart katan it bei plukta. And if you say that in regards to a minor, an infant, there is a machloket, nimtzeit avelut noheget bekatan. Do we ever say, if you're making that theoretical parallel, that there is mourning when applied to a minor? Vahatanya. And aren't we taught elsewhere in a bright? Mikra'in lekatan mipnei agmat nefesh. That we do tear the garment of a minor, okay, in order to indicate as a sign of mourning, suffering, sadness. Okay, well, but it's not of the child, it's to remind other people. To remind other people of that suffering. It's not the child suffering, it's the other people suffering. Amar Rav Ashi, says Rav Ashi, Mikatani, who teaches Ha'asurim, that that's forbidden. Dilma Yesh, sorry, Dilma Yesh Mehen Isur V'Yesh Mehen Mutar. Perhaps there are situations where it's forbidden, perhaps situations where it's permitted. Amema says, Ve'itema Rav Shisha, and some might say it's Rav Shisha Berei de Rav Idi. Matne Hachi, taught it the following way. Amar Shmuel, says Shmuel, Katan Mutar Legalcho B'moed. It's permitted to shave this new child on Chol HaMoed. Lo Shna Nolad B'moed, V'lo Shna Nolad Me'ikara. And there is no difference whether he was born on Chol HaMoed or born in advance of the holiday. Amar Rav Pinchas, Af Anan Nami Tamina. So we also, says Rav Pinchas, have taught. Kol Elu Sha'amru Mutar Legalech B'moed. All those where we say that it's permitted to shave on Chol HaMoed, Mutar Legalech B'mei Avlo. It is permitted for that person to shave during the days of their mourning. Ha'asurin legalech b'moed, but where it is prohibited to shave in Chol HaMoed, asurin legalech b'mei evlo. It is prohibited to shave on the days of the mourning. I amart katan asur. If you're saying that for a minor it is prohibited, nimtzeit avelut noheged b'katan. We therefore find that there are aspects of Avelus regarding a minor. Vitanya, and we've learned in a Braita, Mikra'in lekatan mipnei agmat nefesh, that we tear the garment for a minor because of as a sign of suffering for others. Amar Rav Ashi, says Rav Ashi Mikatani, who teaches it? Ha'asurin. Here we say it's forbidden. Dilma yesh mehen isur, v'yesh mehen mutar. Perhaps there's situations where it's prohibited, perhaps where it's permitted. Aval eino noheg avelut b'regel. But we do not observe mourning on the holiday. Shene'amar, as it says, v'samachta b'chagecha. You should rejoice in the holiday. E avelut de meikarahu, ate asay de rabim, udache asay diachid. In a situation where the mourning began earlier, okay, we then come to a positive commandment that is for the community, sorry, and that overrides a positive commandment of the individual. Okay, ve'i avelut dahashta. Okay, and if now the mourning occurs during Chol HaMoed, right? Lo ate aseh diyachid udache aseh dirabim. We do not have a positive commandment of an individual to override a positive commandment of the many, of the community. That deals with that. Now, we come back to another example from our Mishnah. Minudah, one we said who was put into a lower status or level of excommunication. Okay? Remember, there were different levels, nidui, shamta, cherem, different levels. Okay? Minudah, mahu sheyenhog niduya beregel. Does that person, what about this behaving towards that person on the holiday? Okay, what's the status? Amar Rav Yosef Tashma, says Rav Yosef, listen to the following bright. Danin dinei nefashot, the court deals with, deals with cases, capital cases, vidinei makot, and deals with cases involving makus, flogging, vidinei mamonot, and deals with cases of financial issues, ve'ilo tziyet dina, and if one doesn't obey or heed the decision, mishmatinan lei, we put him in shamta. Okay, we put him in a lower level of excommunication. Ve'isalka da'atach, and if you're going to think, eino neheg niduyav beregel, that they do not apply this excommunication status on the holiday, mishumat va'ate me'ikara, okay, when he is put into shamta,
How can you do it on them?
okay, earlier, before the yontif, ate regel v'dechele, is the holiday going to come and push it off? Hashta mishamtinam le anan. Here, do we then push it off? Is that
You're applying it.
okay?
to chatzila.
All right, what's the situation? Amar le Abaye. Abaye says, Vadilma le iyune bedine. Okay, perhaps they're deliberating the judgment. Okay, examining the judgment. De'ilo temahachi. If you don't say it, that's the case. Dine nefashot, regarding such capital cases. The katani, that's taught, hachanami de katlin le. Here too, are we going to say that we kill him then? Vahat mim nae misimchat yom tov. But that would prevent them, the court, members of the court, from celebrating and participating in the joy of the holiday. Excuse me, Titania, as taught by Rabbi Akiva, says, Minayan l'Sanhedrin, shera'u be'echad shehargu et hanefesh, she'ein tu'amim kol oto yom. How do we know that whereas the court who were participating in a deliberation,
Applying it
sorry, and that they should rule on a death penalty, okay, that in this case, right, that they don't do it on the same day. Talmud Loma, that say,
They have to fast. and hold
okay,
it.
we'll get to that in a second. Okay, shahagu et nefesh she'ein to amin kol otoyom, that they don't taste anything that entire day. Okay, implying then that if they're going to rule on a death penalty, they need to fast. Talmud Lomar lo tochlu al hadam. The text says you do not eat regarding the blood. Ela le'iyunei bedina. that implies, therefore, that they are being deliberating on the judgment. Hachanami, here too, le'iyune bedine. Here too, they must be deliberating in his judgment. Amar le, and he said to him, Imkain nimtseit ma'aneh edino. But if that's the case, wouldn't we consider that some sort of perversion of justice by delaying his verdict? Okay? Atu mitzafra uma'aine bedine. They come in the morning and they deliberate on the judgment. Va'aile, then they go. Va'achle v'shatu kule yoma. Then they eat and they drink during the day. Vahadar atu b'shkiyat hachama. And then they come back and come towards nightfall, right? V'gamrin and ladine, and then they finish their judgment. V'katlule, and if they then find him guilty of a capital case, okay, then they would carry out the penalty.
And now it's nighttime and they don't have to pay.
Right?
It makes no sense to me, because here we're saying that the Sanhedrin kills somebody. They don't. The individual is basically, his sentence is because of his action, not because of the sentence.
Yeah, but the halacha is that the Bezdin has to fast if they declare him guilty.
It rarely happens.
And that
Right.
means that they're not celebrating Yom.
Okay.
So they time it so that they
I
can.
I understand that, but the reality is that. they're
Okay.
not
The
ones that
reality
create-
is what Mel just said.
Yeah.
Remember, we have elsewhere in the Gemara, it says a basin that puts somebody
7
to death in 70 years is a bloody basin. Okay?
7:47.
Okay. So, in other words, so they're trying to come up, what could be the rationale as to how they could still deal with a capital case on, okay, and still be able to observe Yom Tov. That's the explanation.
Shouldn't have any impact.
Right.
is what-
Amar Abai Tashma, says Abai, as we continue towards finishing up. Uminuda shehitiru lo chachamim. And regarding the person in some status of excommunication that now has been released by the sages, okay, could be an example. Amar Rabba, says Rabba, mikatani shehitiruhu chachamim. Do we really say, says Rabba, that the rabbis, the sages, permitted him, that they released him? Shehitiru lo chachamim katani, when it says the sages released him, the azil upaise lebaal dine. That was because he actually went to the other litigant and either paid him or got said his forgiveness. He did some tangible act, okay, to release him from his status, okay? Va'ate kamu d'Rabbanan v'sharule, and then he came before the rabbis and they permitted. So what about another case that the Mishnah said? Mitzorah, mahu sheyanhig tzara'ato b'regel. What about the Mitzorah? Must they have their normal situation, okay, right, during on the holiday? Amar Abai Tashma, he says, Vahanazir, Vahamitzorah, Matumato Latarato. The Mishnah clearly said in regards to their status, going from their impurity to their purity. Ha biyumei tumato nahig. Okay, here we're talking about during the days of their impurity, what they carry out. Lo mebaye, we don't ask the ka'amar. We're saying here that this is the format of a lo mebaye. We don't have to clarify, state it totally. Lo mebaye biyumei tumato. We don't have to state it, clarify it, even ask in regards to a situation of impurity. De lo naheg. Okay, that we're saying that that's not carried out. Aval l'taharato, but regarding the transition to purity, nigzor shema yish'eh korbanotav, shall we say then that he has to put off his offerings? Kamash malan comes to teach us that's not the case. Amar Rava Says Rava Tashma. Listen to the following. Vahat sarua. Okay, and the person who is leprous. The Rabot Kohen Gadol. This even includes the Kohen Gadol. Vaha Kohen Gadol, the Kol Hashana, Keregel the Kuli Alma Dami. And the Kohen Gadol throughout the year, okay,
With
Right.
regard to a bailiff.
right, with regard to the situation, okay, is like the rest of any other person during the year. Okay, I'm not regarding, all right, Kohen Gadol, okay, his status, the Kol Hashana Kiregel, the Kuli Alma Dami, is like the rest of the year of everybody else, right? Kohen Gadol, right, is for like a holiday for everybody else, all right? What happens? The Tanan, as we learn, Kohen Gadol Makriv, Onen Ve'ino Ochel, that the Kohen Gadol, when he is in the status of an onen, what we'll call an immediate mourner, okay, if we can use that term, okay, but he doesn't eat the korban, he doesn't eat his offering. Shemamina, and that's what we learn from it. Noheg tzarato beregel, regarding carrying out the tzaras on the holiday. Shemamina, we learn from that. Avail asur b'tisporet. Okay, a mourner is forbidden with regarding haircutting. Midika'amar laho rachmana livnei Aharon, as said by in the Torah to the sons of Aaron, Roshechem al tifrau. Okay, don't move do anything with your hair. Okay, don't do anything with your hair. Miklal, the kule alma asur. From here, we see that for everyone else, okay,
They were ordered to get a haircut.
they
That shows
needed,
no one else.
right, everybody else, it is prohibited. Okay, and we'll pick up tomorrow the top of Tedvav Menudim U'Mitzrayim Mahen B'Tisporet.
It's interesting that the relation to Avelis to the Moed, the Gemara doesn't give any text or legitimation. It just states it.
That's how the Gemara works.
No, they always look for an asmachto.
You're saying, why doesn't it say
is different.
Minalan?
It seems.
Why doesn't it
Right.
say the classical
Right.
Minalan?
That's my
Why don't we have, okay,
It's unusual, I think, correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, we'll get there because you just had the first one. You just had a